Please have your Bible ready, open to the last part of Proverbs chapter 6. If you need to pause the recording or video, have your Bible open, Proverbs 6, 20 through 35. I want to introduce our study with this question. Have you ever heard a public speaker, lecturer, or, yes, a preacher, and you wonder, when will he ever get to the point? In the presentation or the sermon or speech, there is good volume, excellent vocabulary, knowledge is reflected, maybe the point is eventually made, but you become impatient with the journey to the point. And as you sigh, your thought is, when will this man get to the point? Well, in Proverbs chapter 5, in this part of chapter 6, and in chapter 7, you don't have to wait around for the point. The point is made distinctly. The point is made early in the discourse. The point is repeated, illustrated, punctuated, underlined, and cried out with statements like this. The father speaks to his son about the immoral woman, and he says, "Keep your way far from her." He says, "Rejoice in the wife of your youth." He says, "Don't be intoxicated by the forbidden woman. Do not desire her beauty. If you commit adultery with her, you lack sense, and you destroy yourself." And then into chapter 7, "Let not your heart turn aside to her ways." The point is made distinctly early in the discourse, accompanied by illustrations. The father is putting his son on alert about sexual sin. So this is no long, technical, theological discourse. This is not human relations 101. This is not complicated. This is, don't do this. Don't go down to the house of death. If ever there was a passage where the one main idea is clear, it would be these passages in Proverbs 5, 6, and 7. All right, let's pay attention now to Proverbs 6, 20 through 35. "My son, keep your father's commandment, and forsake not your mother's teaching. Bind them on your heart always, tie them around your neck. When you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you, and when you awake, they will talk with you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching a light, and the reproofs of discipline are the way of life, to preserve you from the evil woman, from the smooth tongue of the adulteress. Do not desire her beauty in your heart, and do not let her capture you with her eyelashes. For the price of a prostitute is only a loaf of bread, but a married woman hunts down a precious life. Can a man carry fire next to his chest and his clothes not be burned? Or can one walk on hot coals and his feet not be scorched? So is he who goes in to his neighbor's wife. None who touches her will go unpunished. People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his appetite when he is hungry. But if he is caught, he will pay sevenfold. He will give all the goods of his house. He who commits adultery lacks sense. He who does it destroys himself. He will get wounds and dishonor, and his disgrace will not be wiped away. For jealousy makes a man furious, and he will not spare when he takes revenge. He will accept no compensation. He will refuse, though you multiply gifts. All right, verse 20 here in Proverbs 6 brings up again the value and urgency of what I've been calling the parental pulpit. Mom and Dad, if you don't teach your kids at an appropriate age about sexual matters, you cannot just assume they will come to the correct conclusions. If you leave it to the school system or the internet to teach them, you set yourself up for massive disappointment and regret, and you leave your children to wander in the wasteland of reckless impulses. The stakes are high. You could lose your kids. Your neglect could bring children into the world outside the God-ordained marriage and family relationship. You have to have these conversations. You must get into the parental pulpit and urgently convey to your children what God's will is. I don't mean yell at them or just shout. Now, don't you do that. The prohibitions need to be framed inside the context of who God is and what God has said, the sanctity of marriage, and the utter disaster of premarital sex and affairs. This is not cramming restrictions and threats down their throats. No, this is counsel. And all the elements of that counsel are given to us in these passages in Proverbs 5, 6, and 7. Parents, you want to think about all this. Have discussions about it among yourselves to be united and preserve your boys and girls from sexual immorality. So, listen again. My son, keep your father's commandment and forsake not your mother's teaching. Bind them on your heart always. Tie them around your neck. When you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you. And when you awake, they will talk with you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching a light, and the reproofs of discipline are the way of life, to preserve you from the evil woman, from the smooth tongue of the adulteress. No waiting here for the writer to make his point. No confusion or complication. The commandment is a lamp and the teaching a light. Let's talk about something, beauty. It says in verse 25, do not desire her beauty. There are two kinds of beauty I'll bring up. Let me start here. One of the preeminent cultural values in our time, way exaggerated, is physical attractiveness. And so you will hear conversations like, she is pretty or he is handsome. And we think we know what that means almost at a glance. When we look at someone, we may make our first judgments based on physicality before we know anything about the person. One of the preeminent cultural values of our time is physical attractiveness. We may not admit it, but we think we know it when we see it. There is a certain body type or shape we consider to be appealing. Visual countenance, balance in facial features, weight, shape, form. In the years of our youth, we may have tossed around those insults. Ugly, a mud fence, cross-eyed, fat, big ears, protruding nose. We didn't know the person. We measured the physicality against some standard, some comparison, and then we issued a quick judgment. If not verbally, mentally, she is pretty, he is handsome. Kids sometimes were excluded or insulted or isolated because they didn't meet the standards of community beauty, a standard crafted by the world. So now here we are in Proverbs 6:25, do not desire her beauty. So where there is a perception of beauty, there may not be a reality of value, worth, purity. This doesn't mean that physical beauty is always a cover for evil. It means there is a kind of beauty that can conceal spiritual ruin. There is a kind of beauty that can conceal spiritual ruin and moral bankruptcy. The kind of woman who is described in these warning passages may have eyelashes like nothing you've ever seen. But this says, do not let her capture you with her eyelashes. Physical beauty is no guarantee of anything inside the person and does not ensure a good relationship and a good outcome. Now, I said I wanted to talk about two kinds of beauty. Some of you know where I'm headed. Over to 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. Likewise, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the word, they may be won without a word by the conduct of their wives, when they see your respectful and pure conduct. Do not let your adorning be external, the braiding of hair and the putting on of gold jewelry, or the clothing you wear, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. For this is how the holy women who hoped in God used to adorn themselves, by submitting to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, and you are her children if you do good and do not fear anything that is frightening. Yes, this is the beauty young men need to look for, the inner beauty. It isn't signaled by eyelashes or shape or form. You'll have to get to know the person. Physical beauty is no assurance, no guarantee of inner value. It's all right to be physically beautiful if you are modest, and I would need to say here that every man listening to this was fortunate to have found spiritual beauty packed in physical beauty, but one doesn't necessarily guarantee the other. Two more observations from our passage in Proverbs 6, verses 20 to 35. I want you to go through this passage and underscore words and phrases that indicate consequences of sexual immorality. And I'm going to help you with that. If you mark in your Bible, use a highlighter or a pen or pencil to underline. Indicate some way on the page there, if you write in your Bible, indicate consequences of sexual immorality. And I'm going to help you. These phrases stand out. Being hunted and captured, burned, punished, caught, destroyed, wounded. Oh, those eyelashes, that beautiful form and shape and smile and words that drip like honey. Don't go down to her house. The woman warned about here may look great, but the outside glamour has under it very ugly consequences if you accept her invitation. Let's listen again. My son, keep your father's commandment, and forsake not your mother's teaching. Bind them on your heart always, tie them around your neck. When you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you, and when you awake, they will talk with you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching a light, and the reproofs of discipline are the way of life, to preserve you from the evil woman, from the smooth tongue of the adulteress. So this is the peril of the forbidden woman, the adulteress, who may look terrific and may offer physical pleasure, but in the end, the men who go to her house go to slaughter. We need to teach our young men to look for the hidden beauty, look for the real person inside beyond the packaging. We need to teach our young men and young women about these warnings so vividly described in Proverbs 5, 6, and 7. I want to close with this story. A young man was in a group of young folks visiting a nursing home. And this young man had never done this, but his Bible class teacher and other Christian friends urged him to come along. They would go into the nursing home rooms and just visit with people and offer to read Bible passages. This young man was very new to this, uncomfortable about it. But he did it, and he went into a room where a husband and wife shared the room, and she was very ill, not able to speak. She was under hospice care. The young man said to the gentleman, "I'm so sorry about your wife." The young man looked over to a picture on the bedstand of the couple when they married 60 years earlier. And he said to the elderly man, "She was beautiful." Long silence, and the old man said, "She still is." And the old man read to the young man from 1 Peter chapter 3.